Right, welcome back to Shedtune and the final part of the cheap TS1 build. It's complete, but I've had some issues with various bits and pieces that we've bought, which we'll go through in a minute. So if you just found this episode, this is the final bit of the TS1 build, as I just said. And the whole idea of the project to start with was that times are hard, everything's expensive. Let's see if we can build a cheap TS1, complete engine out of second-hand parts where possible, new parts where we had to. And that's exactly what we've done. Keep tuned, and obviously at the end I'll tell you how much it's cost in time and pound notes. So the first thing that didn't quite go to plan was the engine mounts, silent blocks, whatever you want to call them, because I got so carried away with everything else I didn't bother checking them, masked them up, etc. And then it wasn't until I went to fit in the engine stand to fire it up that I realised that they were all cracked. So I've had to buy some new ones of them. The only ones I could get were BGM ones, which I'm sure I'll find. These are the ones that go in left hand and right hand, but as you'll find out, they ain't cheap. So that's the next job to do. Another issue I had was the rear wheel bearing. Goes in behind there, and if you remember, I purchased some off of eBay, and what a disaster that was. I spent ages and ages and ages trying to get the oil seal to get in to there. I heated it up, I cooled it down, but I couldn't. I wasted 2 oil seals before I finally gave up. I then contacted SKF, gave them that part number, and they told me that that part number was now discontinued. So it got me wondering, on the box and the packaging it says made in India, on the bearing it says made in Germany. So I don't know if I've accidentally bought some fake bearings, but it wasn't any good whatsoever. So I ended up phoning up MB and getting some race tour bearings, and what a surprise, the oil seal fitted immediately, everything located properly, and now it's sorted. Another issue we had was with that cheap kickstart that we got off of eBay. Now, as you can see, I've had to relieve it somewhat, and it still doesn't clear because it won't sit into the casing properly. I don't know if you can see that, but it's sitting up proud and won't go flush. Also, the spring doesn't help because that won't do it either, even though at this end it's shimmed correctly and everything else. So we're going to have to bin that off. I've had to buy a real one. I've got 2 new springs, just to get it to work. What I should have done in hindsight was try to buy a casing ready, complete and done. But you live and learn, don't you? Not everything cheap is always good. On to the things that worked really well. The first thing was obviously getting the barrel plated at Lancourts. So chuffed with that, and it went together so nicely. Everything was spotless. It sealed up good. I got a new Darrell Taylor head gasket and a new base packer off of him as well. That all worked well. Everything else went together nicely, so it should run very nicely, hopefully, when we get in the engine stand. Right, so now to the nitty gritty. You all want to know what everything costs, so I've broken it down into sections for you. We'll start off with the top end. So we had the TS1 kit at 300 quid. I actually made notes here on my phone. Plating was £198.20, that was new. Tuning 100 quid new. Piston was new but second hand 80 quid, that's a kit. Studs second hand 15 quid. Copperhead gasket was new 20 quid, and the packer was new 9 quid. All in all, I reckon the top end cost me £722.20. Right, we'll move on to the next area. Here we go. So the arse end of the scooter. So rear end, so lay shaft, 30 quid second hand, SX gearbox 60 quid second hand, rear hub 70 quid second hand, the nut, locking ring, grub screws, all that sort of stuff was a fiver, brake shoes, brake springs, etc. was second hand, that was a tenner. Everything else was in the case anyway, so 175 quid for the arse end. Next bit. Right, the next bit was this pesky area, so the clutch area. So if I get my phone out, let's have a look. So got a second hand front sprocket for 6 quid. I had a second hand chain anyway, that only cost me a tenner. New AF easy clutch 52 quid. LCH clutch second hand 300 quid. Chain tensioner was new second hand 15 quid. What else is on there? That's about it, because I've done the side casing separately. Here we go then, mag housing and ignition. So I was fortunate enough to get the mag housing with this when it was a brand new uni case, so all I had to do was put bearings in it, oil seals, and build it up. So I reckon that lot cost me about 85 quid in total. The ignition is a second hand Variatronic. I got all of that off of well, this particular one off of Johnny Gilbert at JG Scoots for 100 quid, which is handy. So that little lot there has cost me about 185 quid, which ain't bad, is it? Right, so here goes for the expensive stuff, the engine casing itself. So as I said earlier, I've had to put some new silent blocks in, so they'll be 42 quid when I've done that. The crankshaft I bought new, 230 quid, but it is a race crankshaft off of Darryl Taylor, so I know it's going to be good. The engine cases itself were second hand, they were 380 quid. Rear brake cam and odds and sods there, 27 quid second hand. All the bearings and seals I reckon around the 90 quid mark. So all in all around 770 quid. So it's all adding up, people. While we're on it, we'll talk side case, because obviously that's been a bit of a disaster. So the side case itself, so I've got a new kickstart shaft off of eBay, as you know, for 13 quid. Second hand, nearly new kickstart for 15 quid. I had to use a couple of oil seals, a couple of shims, a couple of circlips, so what's that, probably 3 quid. Spring 4 quid. Kickstart plunger, pins and all that sort of bits and pieces, 350 second hand off of eBay. And I've obviously had to get yet another new kickstart shaft, which was 30 quid. So all in all, best part of 70 quid there. Then we've got things like sealant, Loctite and all odds and sods, so I've added another 40 quid for that. That's the parts. So that whole engine in parts has cost roughly £2,370 to build. I'll let you work out whether you think that's cheap or not. Then the next bit we need to talk about is how long it took to do, because I could probably build an engine in not that long a time, maybe 10-12 hours, but this took me, I reckon, about 14 hours to build. Then on top of that, there's what I call the messing about hours, having to redo stuff because I bought cheap crap and it didn't work, and that probably added another 6 hours, so I reckon I've done 20 hours. And if you price it conservatively, £35 an hour, that's another 700 quid on top of the cost of the build. So labour wise, around the 700 quid mark. So adding all of that up, we've got a grand total of £3,070 for an engine. That's not including an exhaust or a carb, but hopefully it'll be a good engine. I'm going to stick it in the black GP and see how we get on, and that's it. So what's the moral of the story? Get someone else to do it maybe, or try and do it on the cheap. Don't know. I don't think there is a cheap TS1 or any cheap engine, to be honest. Right, that's it for this video. What have we learned? We've learned that buying cheap crap off of eBay don't pay. If you're going to buy stuff, buy decent stuff in the first place, because it just causes more grief than it's worth. The stress on that bloody kickstart and other bits and pieces, it's just been ridiculous. Yeah, well, is it cheap? 3 grand for an engine? maybe not, I don't know. Might be slightly cheaper than a dealer, but who knows. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this series. If you've just found the last bit, go back and check out all the other stuff we've done to the engine. Give it a like because it really helps with the channel. Maybe subscribe and tell your mates. If you're into scooters, we do Vespa, Lambretta, we race, we mess about, and we have a good laugh. Anyway, that's it for now. Cheers.